commons-based and needs-based economies are subsistence economies. And one of the things that we learn in a capitalist, market-based, modern socialization is to look down on subsistence economies as primitive, stupid, etc. And all the wisdom that exists in subsistence economies is erased from that way of looking at things. Because what is a subsistence economy? You create economic activity just enough to attend to needs. In subsistence economies, people tend to have more time. They tend to have more relationship focus. They tend to have more capacity to engage and be in relationship with life beyond just the human. So there are many things, there are many benefits to the subsistence economy that we have been trained not to see. Our economy is consumption-based, and in a consumption-based rather than subsistence-based, you're always going to look for more ways to consume as an individual. And why do you do that? Because that's the only way that keeps the engine going of the economy. See, part of the kind of like the selling our soul to the devil is there are basic things about economics that people don't know, which is that why does the economy have to grow all the time? There's a reason. It's not just because somebody wants it to grow. It's because the economy is driven by debt, and debt has interest. And in order to pay the interest, if you add up everybody's debt and everybody's interest, where is that going to come from? Individually, it's easy. It's like, okay, I work a little more, or I sell a product on the side or something. But if you add it up cumulatively, it means having to grow the economy faster than the interest rate grows. That is where the growth imperative comes from. So you, by definition, have to produce more collectively, whether or not it's needed. So the transitions, again, this is another angle. It's like this, all the conversations that we're having here today, all the different questions go to profoundly deep topics that where our eyes have been veiled, basically. So let's now go to your question of food. The difficulty is that the overwhelming majority of people on the planet don't have direct access to food. The only access we have to food is through supply chains. It's very different from having access to food that is local, that is in your garden or in your community, in your neighborhood, in the field that is around the corner. Those are things the majority of people on the planet no longer know. There's still, I think, about a third of the world's population still depends on commons for its daily living. That's a lot. Maybe it's less than a third now. I don't know. I haven't kept up with the numbers, but it's substantial numbers of people are still living in direct relationship with the commons. But those of us who don't are in a situation of such precarity that is hidden from us. We are like a few days away from mass starvation, basically. Because if the whole logistical machinery that moves commodities around the globe were to collapse, everybody who lives in cities will be in deep trouble very quickly. So the question of how do you move away from that? How, again, I can only speak of islands, not at scale. On the islands, community gardens are a step in that direction. So I don't know what the numbers are now, but a few years ago, I learned that in Havana, in the maligned country of Cuba, 50% of the food that people in Havana eat grows within Havana. A city grows within the city. Now that tells you something, and that's doable. That's doable. Another thing that you can do is you can create urban-rural relationships, because most of the food in the US that is grown travels about 1,500 miles or more than 2,000 kilometers before it reaches the table where it's going to be eaten. Sometimes it will go all this distance and then come back to something that is just 50 kilometers away, because that is the way that the supply chain is organized and there's no direct link. So farmers markets, they are not commons, but they tend in that direction. They start moving, because when you go to a farmer's market, you build a relationship with the vendor. You're no longer in pure exchange. You see the vendor, you see the farmer there, and you want them to thrive. So you're giving the money to the farmer with pleasure in a very different way than you're giving the money to a cashier in the supermarket, because there is already the rebuilding of a relationship in a farmer's market. So it's about rebuilding relationships, localizing, and reducing consumption. Those are like three key factors that I think can help. And I'm wondering if that speaks to your question at all.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I was also curious about other ways we could generate some creativity around the bigger system changes, but perhaps we don't know, or that can wait.
I have a picture of something that could be done. And that is in some fantasy piece that I have. The simple version of it is, I think many people know about bioregions, but there's something called ecoregions, which is a concept that measures both biological activity and human activity in different regions. And you can create ecoregions that have that are kind of like, it's fairly vague, but it's within the region. There's more similarity within the region than the similarity of each region to another. And the lines are completely based on biology and social relations. So that if I was like given the magic wand, this is what I would do. First, step one, complete the mapping of ecoregions in the globe. Right now, ecoregions are mapped only in North America. Map the entire world into ecoregions. Then within each ecoregion, get teams of volunteers to take inventory of the resources that exist within that region and the needs that exist within that region. And then you try to, first of all, match as many of the resources that are within the region to the needs that are within the region, so that the needs are met as locally as possible. And then after you do that, you get two pieces of data. One is, what are the needs that cannot be attended to at present with the resources that are available within the ecoregion? And the other is, what are the regions, the resources that exist within the region that are not needed and can be given to other regions? And then you can use the entire machinery of the logistical infrastructure and transportation infrastructure that exists at shorter distances, except you won't use money as the mediator, but just direct need and direct clarity about resources. So then the resources start flowing regionally, from region to region, based on need. And if you expand it, you can get to the entire globe being mapped, and it's known exactly where resources are and where needs are and what needs to move where for real, not based on some concept of greed. Yeah.